The massive ship was dying, until a human mechanic removed the parasites. It drifted near the edge of a dying star system, where light barely touched its surface, and its enormous engines were quiet, almost lifeless. To Eli, it was beautiful and terrifying all at once. He floated in his small shuttle, eyes fixed on the ship's exterior. Panels hung loose, some sparking faintly. Strange growths clung to the hull, pulsating like they were alive. He had been hired to perform a salvage inspection, but instinct told him there was more to this ship than a simple repair job. When he docked, the airlock hissed, welcoming him in a mechanical sigh. The inside smelled metallic, tinged with something organic, like a living creature that had been sleeping too long. Eli activated his helmet lights, scanning the corridors. They stretched endlessly, twisting like a maze. The walls were lined with alien scripts he couldn't read, but one thing was clear: the ship was struggling. The first signs of life he encountered were faint, flickering lights, distant hums, and the faint vibration under his boots. The ship's AI spoke, not in words but in thoughts that felt like a gentle push in his mind. "Human detected. Why are you here?" Eli froze. The AI's voice was cautious, almost suspicious. "I'm here to check your systems," he said aloud, hoping the sound of his own voice would help him stay calm. "I don't want to harm you, I just want to help." There was a pause, then a ripple of thought. "Help. All visitors bring decay, human. You are small. You are fragile." "What can you do?" Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe more than you think." He moved deeper into the ship, carefully navigating corridors that bent in impossible angles. Strange growths clung to the walls, black and fibrous, feeding on the energy conduits. Sparks ran through them, then vanished as if the ship itself tried to fight them off. He had never seen anything like it. These were parasites, and they were draining the ship's power. He crouched near a damaged panel and connected his scanner. The readings were alarming. Energy that should have been flowing steadily through the ship was being siphoned into strange organic networks that pulsed and writhed like living veins. These parasites were smart, adaptive. They had been inside the ship for a long time, slowly weakening it. "Not on my watch," Eli muttered. He moved cautiously, marking the parasite clusters on his tablet. The ship's AI spoke again, a tremor of curiosity mingled with doubt. "Why do you study them? You will fail. You are human." Eli tapped his scanner. "I've seen worse. Humans are good at fixing things." The AI didn't respond immediately. Instead, it guided him through a side corridor that led to a larger chamber. The room was massive, filled with dormant machinery and panels sparking erratically. Eli could feel the ship's pulse here. It was weak, labored. He could almost hear it struggling to survive. He knelt beside a damaged conduit and studied the parasite clusters. They reacted to his presence, shifting slightly, almost defensively. He realized that brute force wouldn't work. He needed finesse, observation, and patience. Eli pulled out a small toolkit. Most humans would struggle with alien tech, but Eli had a knack for patterns. He started with the simplest connections, tracing energy flows and gently isolating parasite nodes without triggering them. Every time he successfully removed a small cluster, the lights brightened slightly, and the hum of the engines grew steadier. The ship seemed to notice. You can touch us without harm. Why?" "Because I care," Eli said simply. "I fix broken things, that's what I do." The AI was silent after that, perhaps trying to process this human logic. It had encountered many species before, but none approached its pain with curiosity and patience. Eli's human intuition, his calm persistence, was something the AI had never calculated. Hours passed. Eli worked tirelessly, moving from one cluster to another. Some parasites were small, easy to remove. Others were massive, almost embedded in the core systems. He had to improvise. Using a combination of magnetic clamps, cutting tools, and delicate energy stabilizers, he extracted the largest clusters with care, avoiding damage to the ship itself. At one point, a parasite cluster reacted violently. It shot a pulse of energy that could have fried his suit. Eli jumped back, heart racing, and quickly recalibrated his tool to absorb the energy safely. He wiped sweat from his brow. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were adaptable. That adaptability had just saved him, and the ship. The AI spoke again, this time in a tone that carried faint awe. You learn quickly. You anticipate. You are different. Eli chuckled softly. Different is good, you'll see. He continued his work, moving deeper into the ship's corridors. Strange rooms opened up. Alien libraries filled with data crystals. Maintenance bays where massive engines waited like sleeping beasts, and even corridors filled with organic growths that seemed almost alive. He realized the ship had been alive for centuries, a creature of technology and biology intertwined. The parasites had been like a disease, eating away at its life force. By the end of the first day, Eli had cleared several key systems. The lights glowed brighter, the hum of the engine steadier. For the first time in centuries, the ship breathed easier. The AI seemed calmer, more willing to cooperate. It even guided him to areas that needed urgent attention. As Eli prepared to rest, floating in a maintenance chamber, he felt a sense of connection he hadn't expected. This was no ordinary job. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was a healer, a savior of a living, ancient being. The ship's thoughts lingered in his mind almost like a whisper. Perhaps humans are more capable than I imagined. Perhaps you are the key. Eli smiled. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he felt ready. Humans were survivors, adapters, problem solvers. He had only just begun, and somewhere deep in the ship, the parasites stirred, sensing the human who dared to touch what they controlled. Tomorrow would be harder, but Eli knew he could face it. Humans didn't give up. Eli awoke to the faint hum of the ship, steady now, almost as if it were breathing. The glow of the lights felt warmer, less flickering than the day before. He floated out of his makeshift sleeping chamber, stretching his arms inside the suit. The ship's AI reached out, its thoughts slow but steady. You survived the first day. Few do. Today you will need more than curiosity. Eli smiled faintly. I've got more than curiosity. I've got a plan. The plan was simple in theory. The parasites had spread through the ship like a root system, but they were not uniform. Some were small and isolated, feeding on minor conduits. Others were large, embedded deep within the engine rooms and core systems, almost fused with the ship's nervous system. Today, he would tackle the second category. He started in the lower maintenance bay, a place he had barely explored yesterday. The room was vast, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadows. Alien engines hummed faintly, dormant yet massive. Eli floated toward a cluster of parasites, his scanner beeping furiously. These creatures were larger than any he had seen. Their bodies were wiry, black, and segmented, with glowing veins that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's failing energy. Eli studied them for a long moment. Unlike the smaller clusters, these seemed to respond to motion and energy. Any sudden movement could trigger a defensive reaction. He adjusted his tools carefully, a combination of magnetic clamps, microcutters, and an energy stunner he had rigged from spare parts. As he moved closer, one of the parasites flickered and extended a thin filament toward him. His heart raced. He ducked instinctively, letting his scanner pulse a weak counterfrequency. The filament recoiled, and he saw the parasite shrink slightly. Clever human, the AI thought, almost amused. You adapt quickly. Eli wiped sweat from his brow. Clever is just another word for surviving. He worked carefully, detaching the parasite node from a power conduit. Sparks flew and a low growl vibrated through the metal walls, a sound like the ship itself groaning. The parasite tried to fight back, sending a surge of energy, but Eli's improvised shield absorbed it. Slowly, deliberately, he removed the cluster. Once the parasite was isolated, he placed it in a containment unit. The glow dimmed, and the engine hum rose slightly. Eli allowed himself a small smile. Each cluster removed made the ship stronger, more alive. Moving deeper, he found a hallway almost entirely overgrown with parasites. The walls, ceiling, and even the floor pulsed with black, writhing matter. He realized this part of the ship had been infected for decades. Any mistake here could trap him, or worse. He paused, taking stock. There was no way to clear this section quickly. Brute force would destroy the ship. He had to outsmart them. Eli adjusted his tools, configuring the energy pulses to mimic the ship's own energy signature. If he could make the parasites think the ship itself was isolating them, they might retreat without a fight. He tested it on a small cluster. The filaments retracted. He breathed out slowly. "That's it," he muttered. "They respond to the ship's energy, clever little pests." For hours, Eli worked through the infestation, isolating clusters, redirecting energy, and avoiding traps set by the parasites. They were clever, semi-intelligent, almost like a hive mind. Sometimes they would shift suddenly, blocking a passage or sending a pulse to fry his tools. Each time Eli adapted, each time he learned. "Why do you persist?" the AI asked. "You are fragile. The parasites are strong. Most humans would fail." "Because I don't give up," Eli said simply. "Humans survive because we keep trying no matter what." It was true. Every failure taught him something new. Every mistake made him better. And slowly he began to see the pattern in the parasites' behavior. They were aggressive only when threatened. If approached calmly and with precision, they could be isolated without direct conflict. As night passed, or at least the ship's version of night, Eli reached the central junction of the infestation. Here the parasites were massive, fused into the walls and floor, a writhing mass that pulsed in sync with the ship's core energy. This was their hive, the central node controlling the others. Removing this would be dangerous, possibly lethal. He activated the ship's AI, asking for guidance. "Approach with caution. The hive controls everything. One mistake and the ship could shut down, you could die." "I know," Eli replied, his voice steady. "But we have to try. You can't survive like this forever." He moved in, scanning the hive. He noticed a pattern. The parasites coordinated through energy pulses. If he could isolate the pulses and block them temporarily, he could weaken the hive without killing it instantly. That would allow him to remove it carefully. Eli spent hours recalibrating his tools, adjusting energy emitters and mapping the hive's structure. The room was alive with flickering lights, low hums, and the occasional snap of a parasite filament. Sweat dripped from his forehead inside the helmet, but he ignored it. Focus was all that mattered. Finally, he was ready. He activated the energy emitters, sending pulses that mimicked the ship's core rhythm. The hive shivered, then paused. Filaments retracted slightly. It was working. Eli moved closer, carefully detaching the outer nodes. Sparks flew, but the hive didn't fight back aggressively. He worked steadily, isolating cluster after cluster. Then suddenly, a large filament lashed out, wrapping around a conduit and sending a surge of energy toward him. Eli jumped back, hitting the wall, and quickly activated his shield. The energy dissipated harmlessly. He adjusted the emitter's frequency and approached again, slower this time. The hive seemed to hesitate, almost thinking, almost observing. Eli realized something important. These parasites were not mindless. They were reactive, intelligent in their own way. But humans had something they didn't: improvisation. They could change strategies mid-action. He smiled faintly. "Sorry, little guys. Humans adapt faster." Carefully, he detached the remaining clusters, placing each in containment. By the time he was done, the hive was reduced to a weakened mass, pulsing faintly but no longer controlling the ship systems. Lights throughout the ship brightened. The engines hummed strongly, almost joyfully. The ship's AI reached out, its tone changed. You have done what I thought impossible. You have survived. You have succeeded." Eli floated back, exhausted but exhilarated. "We're not done yet," he said. "But this is a good start." He spent the next hours inspecting the ship, making minor repairs and recalibrations. Every system he touched felt alive again. The hum of engines, the glow of panels, the warmth of power, it all felt like a heartbeat. For the first time in centuries, the massive starship was stable. As he floated through the corridors, he realized the parasites had been more than a physical threat. They had been a test, and humans had passed. "Why do you persist, human?" the AI asked again, softly this time. "Because we don't just survive," Eli said, looking at the faintly glowing walls. "We solve problems, we fix what's broken, that's who we are." The AI was silent, but there was a change. Respect, maybe awe, or perhaps curiosity. For the first time, it didn't doubt humans. Eli rested briefly in a maintenance chamber, eyes scanning the vast corridors. Tomorrow, he would tackle the remaining pockets of parasites, especially near the core systems. But tonight, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had faced intelligent, dangerous creatures, and human ingenuity had prevailed. Yet deep in the shadows, the hive's remnants stirred. Though weakened, the central node still existed, and it had learned something too. It had learned about humans, about Eli. And it would remember. Eli didn't know it, but the final challenge was coming. One wrong move could undo everything. The hive was clever, adaptive, and dangerous, but Eli smiled faintly, floating in the glowing corridor. Humans were clever too. And he had something the parasites didn't, the ability to think, to adapt, to persevere. And that was enough. Eli floated through the massive corridor leading to the ship's core. Every step, or rather, every push against the low-gravity walls echoed through the enormous structure. The ship was alive again, its systems humming steadily, lights glowing warmly, and even minor engine thrums vibrating like a heartbeat beneath his feet. Yet he knew the job wasn't done. The parasite hive was still alive, buried deep in the central core, waiting. The AI reached out to him, its presence stronger than before, almost protective. "You must be careful. The core hive, it is unlike the others. It reacts faster, thinks faster. One mistake could end you or us." "I know," Eli replied, adjusting the harness around his suit. "But we've come too far to stop now." The path to the core was filled with remnants of the parasite infestation. Small clusters tried to block his way, filaments stretching across corridors, ready to strike. Eli's tools were ready. Energy emitters, magnetic clamps, microcutters, and the improvised shield he had built from ship parts. He moved carefully, timing each movement with the pulsing rhythm of the ship's core energy. The hive's influence was clear. Energy flickers pulsed along the walls, black veins crawling across panels as if trying to reclaim control. It was alive, watching him, learning his methods. Eli's heart beat faster, but he stayed calm. Humans had a way of seeing patterns where others saw chaos, and he would use that now. He approached the central chamber. The doors were massive, alien metal engraved with glowing circuits that throbbed with energy. Eli paused, taking a deep breath inside his suit. "Here we go," he muttered. The doors opened slowly, revealing the core. It was a vast chamber, a cathedral of machinery and living matter fused together. The hive pulsed at the center, black and writhing, glowing veins snaking through conduits and engines. Sparks danced along its surface, and the air vibrated with energy so intense it made Eli's teeth chatter. The AI spoke, its tone urgent now. "The hive controls everything here. Any misstep, any miscalculation, and the core shuts down. You must isolate it carefully." "I've learned a lot since yesterday," Eli said, floating closer. "Time to put it all to use." He deployed his energy emitters, calibrating them to mimic the ship's natural rhythm. The hive recoiled slightly, its filaments twitching as if confused. Eli moved carefully, attaching clamps to key nodes, isolating sections without damaging the core. He worked methodically, one step at a time. The hive reacted, sending pulses that knocked out lights and triggered alarms. Eli adjusted his shield, redirecting energy surges harmlessly. Sweat dripped inside his helmet and his muscles ached, but his focus never wavered. He had survived smaller clusters by observing and adapting. He would do the same here. He noticed something important. The hive's pulsing followed a pattern almost musical. By mimicking the rhythm with his emitters, he could weaken its control without outright destroying it. This was delicate work. A single wrong frequency, and the hive would lash out violently. Hours passed. Eli floated through the chamber, detaching parasite filaments, isolating clusters, and guiding them into containment units. Sparks flew, and the walls shook with energy surges. Several times the hive lashed out, trying to crush him with thick filaments, but Eli's human reflexes and intuition allowed him to dodge just in time. "Why do you persist, human?" the AI asked, awe and disbelief in its tone. "You are fragile. You should fail. Yet you endure. You adapt. Because we do what needs to be done," Eli said. "We survive, we fix things, that's human nature." Finally, he reached the central node, the heart of the hive. It was massive, glowing with black energy and pulsing in sync with the ship's core. One wrong move could destroy the entire ship. Eli studied it carefully, noting weak points in the energy flow. Then he activated his emitters at precise intervals, creating a field that isolated the hive from the core. The hive shrieked, a sound that echoed in Eli's mind, a combination of thought and pain. Filaments writhed violently, trying to break free, but Eli held firm. Slowly, steadily, he detached the last clusters. The hive shrank, weakened, and finally went still. The ship sighed. Not a sound, but a vibration that ran through every corridor, every engine, every panel. It was alive, fully awake for the first time in centuries. Lights blazed, systems hummed smoothly, and warmth spread through the metal walls. The AI's voice, no, its thoughts were almost reverent. "Human, you have done what I believed impossible. You have saved me, you have restored life." Eli floated back, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," he said, looking at the glowing chamber. "You're alive now, safe." The AI reached out, curiosity and awe mingling with something Eli had not expected: gratitude. I have studied many species, human. None have done what you have. Your mind, your intuition, your courage, remarkable." Eli smiled faintly. "Humans survive by thinking, by adapting. We don't give up. That's why we're here." For the first time, the ship seemed almost human in its expression, if a ship could have expression. Panels shimmered, lights pulsed warmly, and engines thrummed with life. Eli could feel the gratitude radiating through the AI, a silent acknowledgement of his effort, his ingenuity, his humanity. But there was no time to linger. Eli had to ensure the remaining parasites were gone. He moved through the ship systematically, checking conduits, engines, and secondary nodes. The AI assisted, guiding him to hidden clusters and dangerous areas. Each parasite removed strengthened the ship further. By the end of the second day, the ship was fully operational. It moved with grace, engines pulsing with energy, lights glowing evenly, and the corridors free of infestation. Eli floated in the central chamber, looking around. He had not only survived, but had restored life to a being far older and more complex than anything he had ever encountered. The AI reached out again, this time in a tone of trust. "Human, you have proven that you are extraordinary. I wish to cooperate with you. Together we can explore, protect, and understand the galaxy." Eli's heart swelled. This was beyond repair or salvage. This was partnership. "I'd like that," he said. "We can do great things together. You've got a lot to teach me, and I've got some ideas too." The ship pulsed in response, as if smiling. Its AI now trusted him fully, recognizing not only his skills but also his courage, patience, and ingenuity, the qualities that made humans unique. Eli spent the next hours stabilizing systems and configuring emergency protocols. He realized that the ship itself had learned from the parasites, adapting its systems to prevent future infestations. But it had also learned from him, the creativity, adaptability, and persistence of a human mind. Finally, He floated to a window overlooking the void. Stars sparkled in the distance, galaxies stretched endlessly, and a sense of infinite possibility spread through him. The massive ship, once dying, now moved with him as part of its new crew. The AI's voice, calm and warm, filled his mind. "Human, you have changed me." Perhaps humans are the key to survival, not just for themselves, but for others. Perhaps your kind can shape the galaxy. Eli smiled, staring into the endless stars. "We've only just begun." For the first time, the ship moved deliberately with purpose. Its massive engines fired, propelling it into a new course through the stars. Together, human and ship, they would explore, learn, and protect. A combination of ingenuity, courage, and determination that no parasite, no enemy, and no challenge could overcome. And somewhere deep inside the ship, where the parasites had once ruled, life thrummed with renewed energy. The massive starship was alive, not because of alien technology alone, but because a human had believed it could be saved, and had made it so. Eli looked at the glowing panels, feeling the warmth of a living, intelligent being surrounding him. Humans were fragile, yes, but clever, persistent, and unyielding. That cleverness had saved the ship. That persistence had restored life. And that unyielding spirit would carry them both into the stars, ready for whatever came next. As the stars streaked past the massive hull, Eli whispered to himself, "Nothing can stop us. Not parasites, not darkness, not even time. Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans endure." And with that, the massive starship moved on, alive, thriving, and ready for a future it had never imagined, guided by the hand of a single human mechanic who refused to give up.